One of the things about the profession of coaching that for me is what gets me up in the morning and makes me look forward to that day's calls is that you get the chance to work with people who either are already making a difference in the world or are going to be out there making a tangible difference in the world. And so it's an interesting kind of a profession that we have, where in a way, our job is to make other people better at their job. And so the way that we impact the world is through impacting the people who impact the world. And the sort of broad category I have for that type of person is a leader. And so coaching leaders is for me the sort of almost highest level of the coaching profession, because every impact that you have with your client impacts the entire planet. Now, your definition of a leader can be as broad or tight as you want it to be. A lot of people think of leaders as CEOs or heads of government, heads of state. And of course, those people are leaders. But you meet leaders every day in communities. They may not have the job title of leader, but they're the person who's stepping up, who people are following. There's a saying about leadership that if you want to know if you're a leader, turn around and see who's following. So leader isn't just a job description. Leader is a way of being in the world that enrolls and compels people to play the game that you're playing, to follow you into, if not battle, on an adventure. And so when I think of leaders and coaching leaders, I'm coaching people who are up to something big enough that they enroll the world. Something big enough that people are drawn to be a part of the game that they're playing. Hi, I'm Neill, and I have been teaching and writing and coaching about the human potential since 1990. And I got into it purely for myself. I got into it not out of any nobility of spirit, but I was a kind of a messed up teenager, and I sort of wanted to get on better than I did. So when I first got into this whole idea of helping people for a living, it was almost 30 years ago. And I started out doing work that sort of fit a little bit more under the therapy definition. I actually got really good at helping people who had panic attacks not have them anymore. And I got to a certain point where it wasn't enough. And what I mean by that is it was wonderful to be able to help people not suffer, but I was interested in what makes people come alive. And somewhere in that journey, it occurred to me that I wasn't a therapist, that what I was a coach. And for me, there's sort of three things that became apparent about what makes a coach a coach. And one is we help people come alive. We help people come alive to the potential inside them, to the life inside them, to the creativity inside them. A second is we help them go beyond their psychology. So in traditional therapy and even in some coaching, you learn psychological techniques to help people master their mind. Well, actually, the more successful people I've worked in the world, the more I've realized they're successful in spite of their psychology, rarely because of it. And so as a coach, we help people go beyond their psychology, and that fascinated me because I wanted to go beyond my psychology. And then the third thing that we help them do is create cool shit in the world. And that's the bit that makes this an exciting job. And when I made that shift from therapist to coach, for me, I felt myself every day more alive talking to people, because I wasn't talking to them about their problems all the time. I was talking to them about possibility. And that journey of possibility forced me to expand my possibility. And I found myself talking to people who in my mind were way beyond who I was. I found myself talking to people at the United Nations. I found myself talking to world leaders. I found myself talking to royalty. And I had the most comical sense of imposter syndrome you can imagine. Like, who am I to be doing this? But the thing I had going for me is I kind of know I'm a little nuts. And so even though I thought, oh, I don't belong here, I don't, why would they listen to me? I also knew that I don't know, and that the proof is in the pudding. It's not about what I know. It's not about what I've done. It's not about my life. It's about theirs. And that was when, for me, the whole thing opened up, and I started to own being a coach at a whole other level. And I started to love coaching people that were living lives way beyond even my imagination. And that was the fun of it. And from there, once I opened up to that, my career opened up, and I was suddenly talking to thousands of people at a time, and I was traveling around the world and doing this, and people were calling me from countries I had to look up on a map to see where they were. What's interesting is, regardless of the job description, every single leader that I've worked with has had one thing in common, which is that they're a human being first. And if you understand what makes human beings tick, you understand enough to begin impacting leaders. It's funny to even talk about coaching leaders as though it's a different job to coaching other people, because in many ways, it's the exact same job. We show up, we listen, we reflect, we ask questions, we hold up a mirror and a flashlight so that they can see themselves more clearly, and we can help them see into those areas where they don't know how to look, or maybe they've been afraid to look. The difference, the thing that sets it apart, is leaders have sort of higher expectations many times of what they want from a coach. They're already good at the life stuff. They don't need therapy light. Their lives are usually pretty great. They're not sitting there, trying to get it together. They've got it together. They want to take it on the road. And so the difference is that really you're looking much less at fixing what's wrong, even if they come to you with a particular problem, and much more at helping them harness their potential in a wider and wider stage. My experience of coaching leaders has been really interesting, because the first thing that I realized is leaders tend to be the most no bullshit crowd you're ever going to talk to. They really don't. I'm not saying that there's no ego. There's usually a lot of ego. But they've already got enough people blowing smoke up their ass. They don't need you for that. In fact, I remember talking once to the comedian Gary Shandling and saying to him, because he didn't seem to like what I was saying, "I'm sorry, Gary, am I not praising you enough?" And he went, "Don't worry about it, it's a black hole," right? They know that they're good at what they do. But what they usually don't have is somebody who will stand up to them and challenge them. Somebody whose job isn't dependent on their largesse, who is willing to say what they see, whether they like it or not. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be mean or you have to take them on, but you gotta be willing to. Because the one thing that any leader worth their salt knows is who they can walk all over and who they can't. One of the most interesting things about coaching is that you actually don't have to be great at what the person is great at that you're coaching. And if you think about sports, that's obvious, right? The best coaches were never the best players. Often they didn't even play the game. It's very rare that you get a great player who is also a great coach. It's a different skill set. And so when coaches come to me and they say, "Well, I can't coach a leader. I mean, I'm nobody. I'm just this new coach. I'm just this person." That's not relevant. The questions that I would ask them is, are you able to sit with somebody and listen and really hear them? Are you able to be with somebody in a way that the best in them comes forward? Are you able to speak to them in a language that they understand? And that's usually the learning part of the equation, is sometimes if we're not from their arena, we need to learn a bit about the language of their arena in order to be able to communicate more effectively, in the same way that you'd at least learn some basic French if you went to France so that you could get on better. But fundamentally, if you can sit with anyone and help bring out the best in them, you can sit with a leader. And for me, the wake-up call to that was I was coaching a guy in South Africa who ran multiple companies. He was incredibly successful, and one of his mentees, somebody who was running one of his companies, came to a meeting with the two of us and was asking him a financial question. And he said, "Don't ask me, ask the coach." And in my head, I'm like, why are you asking me? You're the one who makes hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm just a little coach. But to my surprise, actually, I could help the guy with what he wanted, because I know how to listen. I know how to ask questions. I know how to point people towards the best they have inside them. And that was my little moment of truth, where I suddenly went, oh, I don't have to be them. I just have to be able to help them get the most out of themselves. So I assume if you've watched this far, it's because there's something about coaching leaders, about impacting leaders, that you really want to be able to do. And so in the next video, I'm going to go in more depth into how it is that I've seen over the last 30 years coaches stop themselves from taking that next step, from coaching people they feel they're at the same level as, to coaching people regardless of their level. So you'll notice below the video there's a comment section, and what I'd love is if in the comment section you share a little bit about what you've gotten from this video so far, but beyond that, why do you want to impact leaders? Why do you want to coach? What do you love about coaching? What is it that you would most like to be able to do? What is the impact you'd most like to be able to have on your clients and through your clients on the world? And please share that in the section below, and I'll see you on the next video.